not realize the effect that immigrants have in our life, especially from Eastern Europe. But Bosnian and Serbian immigration has extended into most of our lives through businesses in South County, to new cultural events like soccer events at Busch Stadium, or the subtle happenings like the reestablishment of Bevo Mill and a stability in the St. Louis workforce.
Many Bosnians and Serbians emigrated to the United States in the 1990s, especially between 1992 through 1995, during the time of the Bosnian War. The Bosnian War was a movement by Serbian officials to ethnically cleanse the new Bosnian nation of any non-Serbs so that the former Yugoslavian territories could be combined into a greater Serbia. Over 100,000 were killed in the midst of this war, and many natives, both Bosnians and Serbians, fled the country and tried to reach their own American dream as immigrants. The United States government decided to accept these refugees into the United States to better relations in Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Soviet Union, to increase production within the country and increase trade opportunities across the newly independent European nations. And finally, because the United States recognized the hardship that these refugees struggled against in their homeland. Many of these immigrants then started to settle across the country, but a large amount started in their new lives in St. Louis. St. Louis now has the largest Bosnian population outside the country itself, with more than 70,000 people living in our city. The largest neighborhoods for these immigrants are in Belleville Mill, Afton, and Melville in South County.
Bosnians and Serbians may not be widely known about in St. Louis because they do not have giant businesses that are household names, but the immigrants that came to St. Louis are known for their many small businesses and strong work ethic. Many restaurants and other businesses are especially prominent along Gravois Road in South County.
The introduction of Bosnian and Serbian refugees has opened many new opportunities for cultural events here in St. Louis, like the Bosnian national team playing soccer matches at Busch Stadium, Bosnian Culture Days at Cardinal Games, and Serb Fest held in St. Louis. Many St. Louisans do not see the much interaction with the citizens from Eastern Europe, and these cultural excursions are a great way to learn more about the St. Louis community and new backgrounds.
As we said before, Bosnian and Serbian refugees have a very strong work ethic and really enjoy their new life in America. Their businesses face hard starts just like any other company, and they have fought the battles to stabilize the workforce in St. Louis and their own neighborhoods. South County has been reborn, and thus the entire metro area has reached new experiences with the work of Bosnian and Serbian refugees.
Bosnian and Serbians influence our active St. Louis lives in a subtle way, but still play a strong role in our community.
Increase in the production and new businesses in St. Louis. The economic production and strong work ethic of Bosnian and Serbians help build our many St. Louis neighborhoods.
Abandoned in many cases, and the schools themselves were getting depopulated. So one thing that happened was the large influx of Bosnians into that area caused an economic revitalization of Bevo Mill, the neighborhood. That is, you can really see it in the number of businesses that are Bosnian owned along Gravois and Morganford, right there near the Bevo Mill. And houses in the neighborhood became really spruced up, fixed up, and many Bosnians had over time were able to buy houses. South City and South County is an important vote to court. And I think that many politicians have been very cognizant of the fact that this is a community that will continue to become more and more assimilated, more and more a part of the St. Louis economic and political scene. And therefore, politicians have really sought to establish good relations.
Do you believe that since the Bosnian, Serbian, and immigration, especially Bosnian in the 1990s, that America and specifically St. Louis has benefited in trade and production?
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of the Bosnians who came, when they came initially, were in light manufacturing jobs. It didn't require a lot of English language. They quickly established themselves with a reputation as being very good workers. So they were recruited into those industries. And now that they're a little bit more settled, they've started to open their own businesses. So there are trucking companies, cleaning companies, travel agencies, restaurants. There's a large food distribution company that's owned by a Bosnian gentleman who's from Sarajevo. So that adds to the employment opportunities in St. Louis. It adds to the tax base. It helps stabilize our region economically and in other ways. So yes,
As Mr. McCarthy said, Bosnians and Serbians have started many small businesses in the 20 years since the Bosnian War. Their customer base has started to reach past immigrant communities as the Bosnian and Serbian societies have been recognized more by the rest of St. Louis.
New cultural events and influence.
The city of St. Louis benefits greatly from having soccer venues and other cultural events for immigrants in St. Louis. Not only do these events bring in plenty of revenue for the city, but also the citizens of the St. Louis community, like ourselves, receive the opportunity to witness many customs and cultures of St. Louis's immigrant societies that we often do not recognize. These events also allow the immigrants to express themselves and feel a sense of home throughout the St. Louis community.
some of the best players who are in soccer worldwide are actually Bosnians. There's a young man named Vedad Ibisevic.
You know, Busch Stadium often has Bosnian night, and so just as politicians are really interested in courting the Bosnians, so also our sports teams are, or our remaining sports teams.
Okay. Many new events have been introduced, like Bosnian Night at Busch Stadium, Bosnian national team soccer games, and large Serbian and Bosnian booths at the Festival of Nations here in St. Louis. Do you believe that these new events have spread a positive light on the city of St. Louis?
Did the crime rate rise in St. Louis and the United States after the arrival of Bosnians and Serbians?
Well, actually, the opposite happened, and that's true of St. Louis, and that's true of other areas where Bosnians settled. The neighborhoods became more stable, and therefore crime dropped. We see really a stabilizing effect in areas where Bosnians moved. One of the things that's true about Bosnians is that they're very family-oriented. And when I say family-oriented, I mean not only the nuclear family, the immediate family, but also the extended family who might live in other houses down the street. And that contributed to neighborhood cohesion, and contributed as well to a loss of crime, to a drop in crime, a lessening of crime.
Mr. Moore explained that instead of crime rate increasing, it had decreased. And when Bosnian and Serbians had moved into these neighborhoods, the neighborhoods became more pleasant, and there was a sense of stability that was found in those neighborhoods. Not just only in St. Louis, but in other neighborhoods too. Due to this stability, the crime rate dropped. Explaining more on the topic of Bosnians and how they are very family-oriented and how this contributed to neighborhood cohesion.
What kind of influence did the Bosnians and Serbians have on American workers and the workforce? Was it a positive or negative?
Well, once again, I think it was a positive influence. You know, I know this more anecdotally from individuals that I have met who have worked with Bosnians, but the Bosnians, like many immigrant groups, have a very strong work ethic. And they've recognized work as something that is going to be a way of reestablishing their lives after having lost everything in the war and genocide. And I think they made a very favorable impression on co-workers as well as on employers. That's one of the things that has really helped their relations with other workers. I can't think of any exceptions to that right now. I've never talked to any people who have worked with Bosnians who have had anything but a really good experience with them as coworkers.
Mr. Moore again explained how he thought Bosnian Serbians brought a very positive influence to the workers and to the workforce. Bosnians and Serbians had a very great work ethic, and through work, they saw that it was the only way of reestablishing themselves. Mr. Moore, in conclusion, helped us understand how Bosnians and Serbians brought a very positive
Well, I think that they bring another level of culture to St. Louis that is important. They also economically may bring more jobs to the community by starting small businesses, and they provide more workforce for the community of St. Louis.
Positive. I think it's good to welcome the immigrants in our community, and we're very fortunate to be here, and I think we need to welcome those that want to come to our community and to take advantage of the benefits of being here and the benefits that we probably take for granted. So I think there's a lot of positives for everybody.
From my opinion, is having cultural events in St. Louis is an incredible things that supported people who's immigrants to United States of America, especially to St. Louis. That showed people a lot of respect from St. Louis, how they respect the immigrants and they help him and they hold him and they support him to having a better life, a better job, and better family.
But in general, I think people's belief about Bosnians are that a lot of them live in South City, and they do a lot to help those neighborhoods be productive. I don't know that I have an opinion. If anything, it would be positive.
Bosnian and Serbian immigration to the United States is one of the many adventures in refugee immigration. The United States is trapped in the middle of a battle on the decision to accept refugees from the Middle East or not. The Bosnian-Serbian story is seen as a highlight in this discussion and may lay as a background for the success that war refugees can have in the United States. The two ages of refugee immigration are easily compared, as both areas have the same head religion, Islam, which is a highly controversial topic of terrorism in today's world. Bosnian and Serbian refugee immigration is one aspect of the story, but does it apply to all cases in the ongoing fight over immigration to the United States? We'll have to wait towards the future for the best action to take to this social justice issue. Bosnian and Serbian immigration to the United States has a very strong and active impact on each one of our everyday lives. We may not understand or notice the impact of these immigrants in St. Louis, but if we go searching, there is a wealth of culture waiting to be found. These immigrants highlight their strong work in life and strive to better their life and those lives of the people around them. We may see the story of Bosnian and Serbian immigrants in the public soon with the rise of refugee discussion, but now Bosnians and Serbians continue to silently better the lives of St. Louis.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy and Dr. Moore. We greatly appreciate your time and effort towards making our project successful. Thank you.